The wrong human. The Imperial fleet's warship Iridax cut silently through the void, its black hull reflecting starlight like an obsidian blade. Within its command bridge, High Strategos Kael'Zar clasped his talons behind his back, gazing at the stasis chamber recently installed in the observation cell. Inside floated a Terran. Human. Weak. Soft-skinned. Yet vital. Ambassador Elias Rourke, Kael'Zar said with a sneer. Earth's beloved peace architect. Now just a pawn. The bridge crew chirped in approval. The abduction had gone flawlessly, intercepting the Terran diplomatic shuttle en route to the Delvora Accords. No blood spilled. No mess. The Empire didn't need another war. It needed leverage. What they had not considered was that the man inside the chamber was not Elias Rourke. He was Damon Vex. Damon's eyes opened slowly, the thick gel of the stasis field dripping off his skin as the chamber depressurized. A faint hum filled the cell as the force field flickered to life. He blinked once. Took stock. Cell. 3 meters square. Walls. Durasteel. No window. One vent. One camera, poorly concealed. Energy field on the door, probably grade 2. Not unbreakable. He smiled. Not a polite, diplomatic smile. The kind predators wear. 3 guards entered shortly after the chamber hissed open. Tall insectoids, Zaraki enforcers, all carapace and curved plasma spears. The middle one barked in Imperial standard. You will rise, human. Damon complied without hesitation, his movements fluid and precise. No resistance. No questions. He even bowed. My apologies. I didn't expect such royal accommodations. The Zaraki exchanged glances. Arrogance flared in their antennae. They saw a slender Terran in plain diplomatic robes, unarmed, unarmored, and utterly non-threatening. They didn't see the scar behind his left ear or the faded tattoo on his inner wrist, the mark of Terran Black Division, officially disbanded. A myth to most. Interrogator General will see you shortly, one of them hissed. Wonderful, Damon said, tone syrup smooth. I do so enjoy new company. He was escorted through narrow corridors of steel and frost, noting every vent, junction, and guard placement along the way. The rhythm of boots, the slight delay before doors opened, the scent of ozone from poorly maintained force fields. All of it recorded, measured, mapped. When they entered the interrogation chamber, Damon smiled again. A circular room, table in the center, restraints, a 2-way obsidian screen, behind which sat observers. He could feel the heat from the arc emitter humming in the ceiling. Overkill for a diplomat, but not for someone like him. Interrogator General Hasku, a reptilian brute in ceremonial red armor, leaned forward. Ambassador Rourke, you're now a guest of the Empire. Cooperation will ease your suffering. Damon raised an eyebrow, feigning confusion. Guest? I wasn't aware kidnapping was a form of hospitality. Hasku's eyes narrowed. You will explain Earth's treaty positions. You will recite their fallback terms, fleet deployments, and encryption methods. I'm afraid I don't know those things, Damon said casually. I'm only a peacekeeper. I arrange meetings, pour wine, shake hands. A lie. But he told it so well, even the camera didn't blink. Hasku gestured, and the restraints locked in place. Damon didn't resist. They began low-level electroshock probing, primitive stuff. To them, a normal human might crack after an hour. Damon endured it for 6. At the end, they left him slumped over, eyes half closed, breath shallow. Hasku grunted. Pathetic. We'll break him tomorrow. But when they left and the room lights dimmed, Damon sat upright. No hesitation. No pain. He rotated his shoulder gently, flexed his fingers. Soft-skinned? Maybe. But they never peeled back the layers. Later, alone in his cell again, he stared into the lens of the hidden camera. You're watching, he whispered. Good. He leaned forward, the shadows casting strange angles across his face. I'm not your diplomat. I'm your consequence. Flashback. Terra Prime, 7 years ago. Rain poured through the black sky as Damon moved through the back alleys of the Oria's district. One by one, he planted memory spikes into the minds of alien diplomats. false meetings, falsified orders. He wasn't there to kill anyone. He was there to start a war. His hands had never held a weapon during that op, but his mind had been the deadliest one in the room. Back then, they called him Wraith. No trace. No mercy. Back in his cell, Damon stretched out on the cot, hand behind his head. He began humming a Terran lullaby, soft and strange to alien ears. Tomorrow, they'd come back with sharper tools, maybe sharper minds. But it didn't matter. They thought they had abducted Earth's ambassador. They had stolen a human demon instead. And Vrexia, 9 would bleed for it. Vrexia Protocol. Vrexia, 9 wasn't a prison. It was a warehouse for beings the Empire couldn't kill quickly or quietly. Located on the edge of Imperial-controlled space, it orbited a dead planet, veiled by radiation storms and forgotten by most of the galaxy. Damon Vex thrived in forgotten places. It had been 6 days since his capture. 6 days of observation, adaptation, and the gentle unraveling of the prison's routines. 6 days, and already, small fractures spiderwebbed through the facility's chain of control, none of them visible to the naked eye. Yet, Damon sat cross-legged in his cell, hands resting on his knees, staring at the energy barrier. He wasn't trying to escape. He was waiting for someone to break first. The first incident occurred during the evening cycle. 2 guards, a Zaraki and a Koran, exchanged blows outside cell block C. It was brief, vicious, and ended with the Koran bleeding from his mandibles and the Zaraki suspended for unauthorized aggression. The official cause? Miscommunication over patrol routes. The truth? 3 days earlier, Damon had muttered one phrase as the Koran passed by. Zaraki eat their own when bored. Simple, low effort. But the Koran had taken it personally. He'd asked questions, found half-truths in the Empire's archives. Paranoia festered. Damon didn't need weapons. He just needed words. By day 8, things escalated. Infirmary logs reported 3 alien inmates hospitalized due to unprovoked altercations. A minor explosion disabled the mess hall for 2 days. Someone tampered with the oxygen regulators in Block B. No fatalities, but enough to trigger full lockdown. Warden Alactor called an emergency meeting. "We are not under attack," he insisted to his staff. "This is an internal systems issue. Possibly a sleeper cell among the prisoners." No one mentioned the Terran. Why would they? The human ambassador had been polite, cooperative, mild, but Interrogator General Hasku began to suspect. In the observation chamber, Hasku replayed recordings of Damon's interrogations. There were no outbursts, no defiance, only subtle questions. "Do all your officers eat during the 3rd cycle? That clicking sound in the ceiling, is that automated surveillance or just pests?" Too casual, too curious. Hasku narrowed his eyes. What ambassador notices the rotation pattern of cleaning drones? Meanwhile, Damon sat in the rec yard under artificial light, legs folded, eyes closed in mock meditation. Around him, a dozen different species went about their routines, some pacing, some brawling, some whispering in corner clusters. He'd already picked the useful ones. Nerix, a blind Keldari with enhanced hearing, easy to manipulate with empathy. Dravik, a hulking, near-mute Goran who responded to routine and praise. Ishtel, a sharp-tongued former hacker, stripped of her implants but not her skills. He didn't lead them. Not yet. He let them come to him. After all, he wasn't a prisoner. He was building a coalition. Back on Earth, in the depths of the Terran Defense Command bunker, General Miracolt stood before a wall of holograms. "Vex was on that shuttle," she said coldly. "Not Rourke." A young analyst stammered. "But Command confirmed the Diplomat manifest." "Forged," Colt said. "Vex was embedded under a diplomatic ID to infiltrate the Empire's treaty planning. The mission failed. He got picked up. So we're sending a retrieval team?" Colt exhaled. "No. We send a retrieval team. They'll know he wasn't a diplomat. Right now, they think they're just interrogating a soft target. But he's unstable." "Ma'am, the Vex protocol." "I'm aware of the protocol," she snapped. "That's why we're doing nothing. If they break him, they die. If he escapes, they still die. Either way, we don't interfere." Her voice dropped to a whisper. He's not ours anymore. Day 12. The prison's rhythm stuttered. Damon stopped answering questions. He smiled less, ate less, moved less. Warden-elect Tor noticed. The human was winding down. Depressed, maybe. Breaking. But to Hasku, the change wasn't relief. It was a warning. On day 14, the riots began. It started in the lower maintenance tunnels, the kind prisoners weren't supposed to access. A fire erupted, triggered by an overloaded purifier. While guards responded, a Koran inmate stabbed a Zeraki enforcer in the mess queue. Within hours, 3 cell blocks were in lockdown. Warden-elect Tor blamed the same thing he always did: discontent, alien tensions, random instability. Haska stared at Damon's cell feed. The human hadn't moved in hours, but his mouth was twitching. Not a smile, a countdown. Damon stood that night and whispered to the air. It's begun. His eyes flicked to the camera. You still don't get it. I'm not trying to get out. He stepped into the light, the shadows dancing across his expression. I'm trying to break into your systems, your minds, your fears. He leaned closer to the lens. Vrexia falls from the inside, one crack at a time. He turned and lay back down. As the lights dimmed and klaxons began to wail in distant wings of the prison, Damon Vex closed his eyes and listened to the sound of order unraveling. The diplomat makes his statement. 3 days after the first riot, Vrexia 9 was a nightmare of smoke, blood, and silence. Entire sections of the prison sat in darkness, their power rerouted, their cameras dead. Guard moved in squads now, weapons drawn, jumpy. The chain of command fractured. Whispers of sabotage and insurrection spread like fire. Every officer blamed a different species, a different cell block, a different grudge. No one blamed the quiet Terran in cell A17. Damon Vex. Because officially, Damon Vex didn't exist. Interrogator General Hasku stood in the observation room, eyes locked on the feed from A17. Damon was pacing now, slow, measured, controlled, not panicked, not desperate, planning. I want to transferred, Hasku hissed. Now, to isolation. Chain his arms, sedate him if needed. Warden-elect Tor scoffed. You're afraid of a diplomat. Haska didn't answer. He just stared at the feed. Damon stopped pacing. He looked straight into the camera and winked. 10 minutes later, Block A's doors opened without warning. A glitch, said the system logs. A firmware echo from the riot containment override. But Damon had no access to the control systems. At least, that's what they believed. Dravik, the towering Goran inmate, found Damon first. Blood smeared his fists. His expression was as blank as always. Damon nodded once. Time for our statement. Together, they moved through the halls, joined by others. Ishtel, her stolen access key tucked into her tongue pouch. Nerix, still blind, but guided by whisper code Damon had fed her during mealtimes. 3 others followed, inmates who didn't know Damon, but felt his orbit. He wasn't their leader. He was gravity. They entered Security Substation E. Guards were stationed there. 5 of them, all armed. The first didn't see the blade, just a flash of light and the warm spray of his own blood. Damon had fashioned it from a carbon support beam, scraped to a razor edge. Silent. Effective. The second died to Dravik's fist. 1 blow, collapsing skull. The third turned and fired. Nerix dropped, wounded. Damon moved like a ghost. No wasted motion, only inevitability. Within 18 seconds, it was done. He didn't just take the terminal. He broadcasted to every cell block, every monitoring station, even to the orbiting Empire patrol craft. The screen flickered, then stabilized. The image of a blood-spattered human, grinning in a room full of corpses. Damon Vex looked directly into the lens. Attention, he said calmly. This is your ambassador speaking. He leaned forward, placing his hands on the console, as if addressing a council. There's been some confusion. You believed I was Elias Rourke, representative of Earth, proponent of peace. He tilted his head slightly. I'm not. A pause. He let the silence hang. I'm Damon Vex. Psychological Warfare Division, Terran Black Command. Serial number expunged. Missions classified. War crimes, plentiful. Regrets, none. He smiled. You kidnapped me to gain leverage in treaty talks, to use me as a pawn. But you didn't capture a diplomat. You caged a weapon. The prisoners watching erupted into chaos, some cheering, some panicking. Empire officers scrambled to kill the feed. They failed. Damon continued. Vrexia, 9 is no longer under your control. Your guards are panicking. Your systems are compromised. I've opened the air ducts between species-segregated blocks. You'll be fighting across species lines within hours. Trust will evaporate. Blood will flow. I want you to understand, I planned this without lifting a single Imperial weapon. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, because this is the kind of diplomacy humans use when words fail. The broadcast ended. Warden Elector slammed a claw into the console. Send shock troops. Use lethal force. End this. Hasku's skin had turned a sickly gray. He's not leading a riot, Hasku said. He's conducting a war. Across the prison, chaos spread like cancer. Damon moved with surgical precision. He avoided direct confrontation where possible, letting his planted lies and whispered suspicions blossom. Guards who had once worked side by side now fired on each other. Inmates struck back. Blood painted the walls. In the midst of it, Damon found his next target, the command sector. It wasn't enough to cause chaos. He needed to decapitate the system. They reached the central corridor near the command hub. Defense turrets activated. Imperial AI, fast and accurate. Damon handed Ishtel the stolen chip. You're up. Her hands flew over the console as shots sizzled overhead. One turret locked on a Dravik and fired, searing his shoulder. He grunted but didn't fall. I need 5 more seconds, she hissed. You get 2, Damon said. The turrets went dark. He entered the command room. Inside, Commander Vrelek stood shaking, plasma pistol aimed. You're not getting out of here alive, the alien hissed. Damon stepped forward, unarmed. I'm not trying to escape. He reached behind his back. The pistol fired. Missed. Damon threw. A splintered piece of glass, triangular, sharp, straight into Vrelex's throat. The commander choked, staggered, fell. Damon took his sidearm and keyed the console. He opened the hangar bay. Inmates rushed toward the vessels, a tide of desperation and rage. Damon didn't lead them. He didn't need to. He'd planted the match. Now, they were the fire. As he stepped into the hangar, Dravik bleeding beside him, Ishtel limping from a leg wound, Damon paused. He looked up at the observation cameras, the last one still functional. Message received? He asked, voice calm. Good. He boarded the Imperial dropship, engines humming, and vanished into the blackness of space. Diplomacy concluded. 3 Imperial warships hovered in orbit over Vrexia, 9, silent and hesitant. Smoke spiraled up from the moon's surface, thick, black, and laced with the flickering glow of fire. Communications had gone dark an hour ago. No updates. No chains of command. Only static. Aboard the flagship Vraxilin, Admiral Selvek of the 4th Imperial Fleet watched the footage of Damon Vex broadcast on loop. This cannot be the work of one human, Selvek muttered. But each time the image paused on Vex's blood-slick smile, on those calm eyes behind the chaos, Selvek felt something unfamiliar twist in his gut. Not anger, not confusion, fear. Inside the prison wreckage, Damon Vex walked through the ruined corridors of what had once been the most secure facility in this region of the galaxy. Fire clung to the walls. Power conduits sparked. Alien corpses lay in heaps, guards and inmates both. He passed them without a glance. Behind him limped Ishtel, still alive but silent. Dravik was gone, killed by a turret defending the hangar from a final security lockdown. Damon hadn't mourned. He nodded once in respect, then moved on. They'd taken what they needed, weapons, codes, and one intact Imperial dropship, enough to leave this graveyard behind. The escape had been swift. The Empire's orbital forces had hesitated too long, unwilling to destroy their own installation without confirmation of what had happened inside. By the time they reacted, the dropship was already halfway to the asteroid field bordering Imperial territory. Inside the stolen craft, Damon keyed into the encrypted diplomatic frequency. Earth had been listening. They always were. "This is Vex," he said into the mic. "Vrexia 9 is gone. Containment achieved through full systemic failure." The voice on the other end crackled, unreadable. He didn't care. He leaned back in the pilot's seat, blood on his knuckles, breathing steady. Then he said what Earth's commanders feared most. "I'm not coming back." Across the stars, news of Vrexia's fall spread like wildfire. Unofficial at first, then confirmed by leaks, rogue broadcasts, even intercepted Imperial communiques. Rumors turned to certainty. A human diplomat had incited a prison uprising, killed an entire command staff, hijacked a ship, and vanished into deep space. Except it wasn't a diplomat. It was something worse. It was a Terran weapon wrapped in skin and smiles. The Empire tried to cover it up. Official reports called it an inmate-led rebellion fueled by rising tensions between species. But among the more paranoid officers, one name echoed in whispers. Damon Vex. Not a myth, not a legend, real and loose. Earth's official statement, broadcast to the Galactic Assembly, was as polished as it was hollow. The Terran Union deeply regrets the tragic loss of life on Vrexia 9. Ambassador Elias Rourke, presumed aboard the diplomatic vessel intercepted by the Empire, was not present during the incident. "We strongly condemn the use of violence within diplomatic or custodial settings. We reaffirm our commitment to peace." Behind the words, General Mira Colt sat in silence, watching a red icon blink on a black screen. The last known transmission of the dropship Vex had stolen. She whispered under her breath, "God help whoever finds him next." In the outer fringe, 3 weeks later, a small trade station received a signal. Encrypted, Terran origin, untraceable. It carried only a single sentence. "Peace talks are delayed. I'm conducting field negotiations." The station was vaporized by an unknown vessel 24 hours later. The Empire denied involvement. Earth didn't respond. Somewhere in the void, aboard a repurposed freighter now bristling with alien tech and stolen weapons, Damon sat at a console, booting up the next phase. Maps flickered. Imperial outposts, relay stations, trade nodes. Weak points. He wasn't planning a war. He was planning a lesson. A reminder that humanity did not send diplomats without sending warnings. And when those warnings were ignored, the response wasn't a fleet. It was him. His voice, recorded from the Vrexia broadcast, had already become a rallying cry across certain corners of the galaxy. Rebels, exiles, pirates, and the broken whispered his name, some with reverence, some with terror. Damon Vex, the human the Empire couldn't break, the diplomat who negotiated with blood. He stared into the void from his viewport, eyes reflecting stars and scars. This wasn't about escape, he murmured to no one. It was about message delivery. He tapped a single button, and the next set of coordinates blinked on screen. An Imperial listening post with minimal defenses and maximum propaganda reach. A perfect target. His grin returned, cold and sharp. Time for another statement.